Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Education, SOE, Certificate Programs, Certificate in Elementary Teacher Education, for Tripura State, CETE, Compulsory Courses, MES-022 Understanding the Elementary School Child, Block-1 The Elementary School Child, Introduction, Unit-1 Introduction to Child Development. 1.1 Introduction. This unit is aimed at acquainting you to the different stages of physical growth and development in human beings of around 11 to 18 years of age. In this unit, you will become familiar with the 4 key periods of growth and human development. Infancy, birth to 2 years old, early childhood, 3 to 8 years old, middle childhood, 9 to 11 years old, and adolescence, 12 to 18 years old. We will, however, give much emphasis to middle childhood. This unit will therefore provide you an overview of the various dimensions of a child's development, i.e., the principles of development, stages of development, and different types of development. 1.2 Objectives. After going through this unit, you should be able to define the concepts of growth and development, differentiate growth from development, identify the changes in a child resulting from growth as well as development, describe the principles of development, enumerate the stages of development, enumerate different types of child development. 1.3 Child Development. Children are dynamic beings that grow physically and intellectually as they learn social behaviors, express emotions, learn values, and show affection towards others. Major developmental events take place in children's lives during their elementary school years, and from around grade 5 on, children are increasingly adolescent-like in their attitudes and behavior. Children must pass through several stages, or take specific steps, on their road to becoming adults. For most people, there are 4 or 5 such stages of growth where they learn certain things: infancy, birth to age 2, early childhood, ages 2 to 11 years, later childhood, ages 11 to 12, and adolescence, ages 12 to 18. Persons 18 and over are considered adults in the Indian society. Of course, there are some who will try to act older than their years, but mostly people grow in this same pattern. A child is always changing till she becomes an adult, irrespective of the fact that the introduction teacher or the parent is mostly not aware of these changes that are taking place. Rather, the tendency is for our concepts of children to lag behind their actual growth and development. The reason for this is that the changes that constitute growth and development usually come gradually, hence we are seldom conscious that they are occurring. The primary purpose of studying the development of a child is to understand her better. You as an elementary school teacher can deal more efficiently, effectively, and satisfactorily with the children if you are to understand the process of how they grow and develop. 1.4 Meaning of growth. The term growth refers to the structural and physiological changes in an individual. Growth is the quantitative change in bodily characteristics, and its sequence is generally consistent among children, although growth rates may vary considerably. Regardless of its rate, growth is measurable. Growth is a function of the organism rather than that of the environment as such. We can measure the height and weight of a developing child, for example at 6-month intervals. These figures would give us the child's growth rate. 1.5 Meaning of development. The term development refers to a progressive series of changes that occur in an orderly, predictable pattern as a result of maturation and experience. Thus, development is a series of orderly changes leading towards maturity. There is a natural arrangement of changes in the individuals, and each change is dependent upon the preceding ones, and also affects the following ones. The changes within development are called progressive because they enable an individual to adapt to and adjust with his/her environment, physical, social, emotional, etc. Though growth and development are closely related, yet they are not the same. The differences between them are as follows. 1.6 Differences between growth and development. 1. Growth is one of the dimensions of the developmental process. Development in its quantitative aspect is growth. Development is a wider and more comprehensive term. It refers to the overall changes in an individual, but growth is one of its parts. 2. Growth can largely be measured, so it is quantitative. The development will be difficult to measure on a scale, so it is qualitative. 3. The changes within growth are measurable. The changes within development are observable. 4. Maturity, physical, is the culmination of growth. Thus, growth does not continue throughout life. Development is a lifelong process. It starts from the birth to death. It does not end with maturity. 5. Growth may or may not bring development. A child may grow, in terms of weight, by becoming fat, but this growth may not bring any functional improvement, qualitative change, or development. Development is also possible without growth, as we see in some children that they do not grow in terms of height, weight or size, but they do experience functional improvement or development in physical, social, emotional or intellectual aspects. 6. The term growth is used in purely physical sense. It generally refers to an increase in size, length, height, and weight. Development implies overall changes in shape, form or structure resulting in improved working or functioning. It indicates the changes in the quality or character rather than in quantitative aspects. Now, having studied the meaning of growth and development and having also known the differences between them, let us try to understand the principles of development. These principles can also be labeled as the characteristics of development. Why should a teacher know the principles of development? The most important arguments are: 1. Knowledge of the process of development at different age groups helps a teacher to know what to expect of a child and when to expect it. A teacher unaware of this process may often expect too much or too little of a child at any point. Expecting a child of standard 111 to learn algebra will be too much of an expectation. 2. If we know the process of development, then the standards or the levels of expectations from the child can also be set. These standards or levels can be in the form of height/weight scales, scales for the mental age, socio-emotional development, etc. The pattern of development for all normal children is almost the same and can prove very helpful for us in judging each child in terms of the norms/standards for that child's age. However, there is no hard and fast rule in this context because normal children also reflect variations in their development patterns. Yet deviations in development patterns from normal children tell something about them which can be of great consequence for us. 1.7 Principles of development. Development is always in a sequence. Every living being followed a pattern of development. A child also develops in an orderly sequence that is almost similar in all children. Each stage of development leads to the next. For instance, all children first learn to sit without support before they learn to stand up. Drawing a circle is learned first before learning to draw a square. The rate and speed of development may vary in individual cases, but the sequence of development pattern is almost the same in all children. One of the sequential patterns of development relates to the two directions in which development takes place. Normally, development of the upper portions of the body precedes development of the lower portions. This is known as cephalocaudal or head-to-toe sequence. This means that improvements in the structure and function in a child's body comes first in the head region, then in the trunk and last in the leg region. This growth pattern helps to explain why children sit before they can stand and crawl before they can walk. Secondly, the development moves from the center line of the body outward towards the distant or peripheral parts referred to as proximodistal or near to far. The word proximodistal is made up of two words, proximity and distance. This is the reason that in a fetus, the head and the trunk are fairly well developed before the rudimentary limb buds appear. Gradually the arm buds lengthen and then develop into hands and fingers. This growth pattern explains why children in the early years are more adept at controlling larger muscles than the whole limbs. This also explains their inability to control finer muscles that are required for the manipulation of tiny objects with fingers. Cephalocaudal principle of development. The upper portion of the body develops before the lower part of the body. Proximodistal principle of development. The middle part of the body develops quicker than the outer part of the body. Development is affected by the individual differences. If you enter a classroom full of children, you can find a beautiful panorama of individual differences as well as similarities. The children of almost similar age are so vastly different from one another that each child stands out as a distinct child. These individual differences are the result of the differences in the heredity and the environment each child receives. Every child follows a developmental schedule which is characteristically her own. All children therefore do not reach the same point of development at the same time or at the same age. Each child is a unique entity and no two individuals are alike. As teachers, we must introduction to child development always be conscious to this fact, and our entire behavior with the children should be directed by this reality. Of course, we cannot treat every child similarly so far as teaching is concerned. Development proceeds from general to specific responses. From babbling to the production of clear speech is a classic example of a child's movement from the general to specific responses. Many such other examples can be cited which all indicate that the child develops from general to specific response. The earliest emotional response of the newborn has generally diffused excitement, and this slowly gives way to specific emotional patterns of anger, joy, fear, etc. Babies wave their arms in general random movements before they are capable of such specific responses as reaching for an object held before them. Similarly, in early stages of language development, the child may use a particular word for any type of animal or any other thing. Gradually, as her vocabulary increases, she learns to use correct, specific words. Thus, specific ones gradually replace uncoordinated movements/responses. Different stages of development have their characteristic features. Every child passes through various stages of development, but on these different stages of development, the characteristic features of development of every normal child are more or less the same. For example, by the age of 1.5 years, a child is normally able to walk independently. Similarly, we expect certain physical development and maturation in an adolescent, e.g., changes in body proportion, the appearance of body hair, etc. If any difference is observed in any type of development, the reasons for such differences are social, cultural, racial, economic, etc. We routinely use chronological age to give us some idea of a child we do not know of age. The same way, a particular stage of development can indicate what to expect of a child. Knowing the developmental patterns for different age groups helps us to know what to expect of children of that age group and the listed behaviors a child is expected to learn at each stage. These are known as developmental tasks. Some of these arise as a result of physical maturation, e.g., learning to walk. Other tasks are developed from cultural/social expectations, e.g., a child from a rural area is expected to learn various skills required for farming. The developmental tasks as suggested by the psychologist Huvinghurst for children for 6 to 12 years are given in the box. These include various physical and mental development areas that children in this age group must accomplish. The developmental tasks serve a very useful purpose by acting as guidelines to parents and teachers to know what children should learn at a given stage. You as a teacher have an important role to play to help children master these tasks. Elementary class children are most pliable and their experiences at this age have significant impact on them. Both parents and teachers have the responsibility of helping children master their developmental tasks successfully so that they can progress into the next stage. It is worth mentioning that these tasks are meant to be mastered over a span of 6 years. And children in, say, class 111, cannot be expected to have mastered all of them. Having has developmental tasks for 6 to 12 years. Learning physical skills necessary for ordinary games. Building wholesome attitudes towards oneself as a growing organism. Learning to get along with age mates. Learning appropriate masculine or feminine roles. Developing fundamental skills in reading, writing, and calculating. Developing concepts necessary for doing everyday activities. Developing conscience, morality, and a scale of values. Achieving personal independence. Developing appropriate attitudes towards social groups and institutions. Though the process of development is continuous for both mental and physical spheres, the rate of development varies in respect of each individual and at each stage of development. As children grow, each area of development proceeds at its own rate and reaches its maturity in its own time period. For example, the heart, one ear, and digestive organs grow slowly in childhood but rapidly during the early years of adolescence. Memory for concrete facts and objects develops more quickly than memory for abstract and theoretical material. Sometimes one aspect of development may slow down the growth and development of another area. It may, therefore, appear as though only one area is developing. For instance, in a young child, growth in language slows down when children learn to walk. The children seem to spend all their energy in acquiring the new activity. The child develops as a unified whole. To understand children and their behavior and activities better, we must view development as something that happens to the whole child. Whether the child is learning a task in school or playing in the park, it must never be forgotten that it is the total child who is involved. Though we have physical, moral, emotional, social, and cognitive developments as the types or kinds of development, yet there is no watertight compartmentalization of each. Growth of various internal and external organs as well as mental development takes place simultaneously and not sequentially. Each aspect of development is dependent on the others and is also influenced at the same time by others. All the aspects are interrelated and integrated. Problems in one area of development can affect the development in other areas too. A mentally challenged child differs from normal children not only in mental efficiency but also in physical, social, and cognitive efficiencies. 1.8 Stages and Types of Development. 1.8.1 Stages of Human Development. From the discussion so far, you must have understood that every child grows through various stages of development. This process of development begins from the moment a child is conceived in her mother's womb. In order that the process of development is well understood, every individual's total lifespan has been divided into various stages of development, which are as follows. Stages of human development: infancy 0 to 2 years, childhood 2 to 11 years, adolescence 11 to 19 years, adulthood 19 years onwards, adolescence stage, i.e., stage of most elementary school children. During the adolescent stage, learners become better aware of the natural stages of growth as they focus on the kinds of physical changes in their lives. This stage has a special relationship to the other stages of human development. It will be observed that at this stage, adolescents have a greater infusion of emerging sexual energy in their lives. It breaks up stability, making possible more mature personality characteristics, which includes mature sexual intimacy and relationships with the opposite sex. This is the stage when adolescents question old values without a sense of dread or loss of identity. They explore many roles within a social context even as they develop a sense of sexuality and personal identity as a leader, follower, introvert or extrovert. During the adolescent stage of human development, there is a strong need among those in the group to advance to more mature relationships and a personal sense of purpose, establishing of a set of beliefs and personal philosophy. It has been called the stage of formal operations, that is the stage when adolescents become less dependent on the immediate environment for his/her thinking. The adolescent develops advanced logical and mathematical thinking skills. She or he has the ability to form multiple hypotheses to predict possible outcomes of non-realized possibilities. Moreover, the adolescent acquires the ability to deal with analogies and multiple variables as they think abstractly, philosophically and about thought itself. During psychosocial crisis, for example, adolescence learns how to answer satisfactorily and happily the question of who am I? Most boys and girls tries to experiment with minor delinquency. Rebellion flourishes even when self-doubt floods the youngster.
This period of human development has also been referred to as school age. School age period is characterized by crisis handling, for better or worse, presumably up to and possibly including some of junior high school. Here the child learns to master the more formal skills of life. Relating with peers according to rules. Progressing from free play to play that may be elaborately structured by rules and may demand formal teamwork, such as cricket. Mastering social studies, reading, and arithmetic. Homework is a necessity for adolescent learners and the need for self-discipline increases yearly. The adolescent learner's successful resolution with earlier psychosocial crises become trusting, autonomous, and full of initiative and learns easily enough to be industrious. However, the mistrusting child will doubt the future. The shame and guilt-filled child will experience defeat and inferiority, while the successful adolescent will experience true intimacy, the sort of intimacy that makes a possible good marriage or a genuine and enduring friendship. 1.8.2 Types of development. Human development. 1. Physical or motor development. 2. Social development. 3. Emotional development. 4. Cognitive or intellectual development. 5. Language development. 6. Moral development. Physical or motor development. Physical or motor development may be defined as the changes in children's ability to control their body's movement, from the infant's first spontaneous waving and kicking to the adaptive control of reaching, locomotion, and complex sports skills. Motor development among children is influenced by peripheral factors, perfection information, and learning for adaptive control of movements, each having its own developmental process. Independent walking, for example, emerges when infants have sufficient muscle strength, slimmed down body portions, desire to go somewhere, balance control as well as brain maturation. Posture plays a crucial role in motor development. Manual skills, locomotor skills, and lifting or turning the head requires a stable postural base. Each aspect of motor development requires learning about new action systems, i.e., running, sitting, crawling or walking. The first step towards a new posture will require contraction of large RNUSCLE groups to free up energy and allow attention to be focused on the expected goal, i.e., standing. Manual skills begin before THC birth of children. While inside the womb, fetuses wave their arms, produce isolated finger movements such as bringing their thumb to their mouth. After birth, infants have to cope with new environments when their arm flaps reach objects. Children initially solve the problem of getting their hands to a target in their own way. At the stage of about 4 months, some infants must overcome gravitational force to move their arms from their sides, while more active infants do dampen inertial forces to control ongoing, spontaneous arms flaps. When babies are about 8 months, their motor developments enable them to use visual information about size, shape, and orientation to adjust the shape of their hands before contacting any object. Older infants can intercept moving targets by moving their hands on the opposite direction before the object arrives. Some older infants can use their skills to Bring the objects to their mouths, and to coordinate visual, tactile, and oral exploration by alternating between looking at the object, turning and fingering it, and sucking. The moment infants are able to manipulate their posture, use visual information and to wave their hands, they can then use these skills to extend their abilities and to bring about rewarding outcomes. They are able to make a noise by banging hard objects on hard surfaces. A 9-month-old child can bang a spoon on the floor but cannot use the same spoon to take food to the mouth until after some months. Motor development also leads to balance and locomotion. Before a child is born, spontaneous arms and leg movements contribute to building and strengthening muscle necessary for locomotion. Newborn children are not able to balance their muscle strengths with their posture, but they can attempt to do so at a later period through crawling movements when placed in a pool of water, and stepping movements when placed on top of a flat surface. Crawling represents the first step towards locomotion. Some children develop crawling habits by first scrapping along on their tummies, while others skip this phase to crawl on hands and knees. Independent walking typically appears after several upright transitional stages of pulling to a stand, balancing and cruising sideways using furniture for support. Before the age of 7, children's small steps characterize walking, with a wide space between the feet. Their toes point outwards and their legs are almost straight, with elbows bent upwards. Movements among children require balanced control to keep the center of mass over the base of support. Children also exhibit compensatory movements when trying to recover from a fall. Keeping a balanced control is difficult for children because their body proportions are top-heavy and they fall faster due to their short height. Children rely on the following for a balanced control: somatosensory information from their muscle, joints, and skin. Vestibular information from accelerations of the head. Visual flow information created by the body's movement. It should be noted that motor development does not stop after infancy. After infancy stage, children acquire a host of more complex activities such as writing, playing, jumping and skipping. 1.8.3 Role of teachers. Teachers often work with students from varied ethnic, racial, and religious backgrounds. It is important for teachers to work effectively with a diverse student population. Teachers may also include multicultural programming in their lesson plans, to address the needs of all students, regardless of their cultural background. Family and community partners can help students overcome social isolation and develop social competence for learning. Social competence for learning has become particularly important recently as teachers move away from direct instruction models to collaborative and cooperative models of learning. Students need the skills that allow them to engage in group activities and that simultaneously promote academic success. Skills such as consensus building, listening, perspective taking, and sharing all need to be developed so that children will be prepared to participate in sophisticated group tasks. The socially less competent child often experiences isolation and rejection in his neighborhood, in the school bus and in group social activities. The teacher can provide such students with a classroom setting wherein she can feel comfortable, accepted and welcome. The teacher must constantly search for opportunities to promote and encourage appropriate social interactions for the socially inept child, e.g., Anita, would you please go over to Suman's desk and tell her that I would like her to bring me her maths folder? Have students work in pairs to complete experiments, bulletin boards and peer tutoring. Just as neural and synaptic integration is occurring in the brain, developmental domains are also being integrated and influenced by both nature and nurture, allowing a child to accomplish particular milestones of development. Children, therefore, need to be presented with integrated and thematic curricula that prepares them for and capitalizes on those developmental milestones, curricula that also enable them to perceive relationships among content areas. Local, state and national standards now encourage teachers to develop lessons that provide students with many opportunities to learn across the curriculum. To support these efforts, we teachers need to be aware of the curriculum and the thematic units and to connect their work to the curriculum goals. The integrated approach is also applicable to partnerships providing social and health services. Students need to see relationships between their social and behavioral functioning and academic learning. This is at the heart of social and emotional learning. The more positive experience students have with cooperation and conflict resolution, the better they will be able to focus their attention on learning. These are skills that must be taught and nurtured by committed and caring adults. Establishing continuity in a child's experiences at home, school, and community is another key to sound development to which all teachers must address. Socio-emotional development and academic achievement are not separate goals but represent the continuum of development that is needed for children to grow up healthy and succeed in school. For promoting the socio-emotional development of the students, the objective of teacher should be to have the basic information and sense of responsibility to be a good citizen. Have begun to choose values that will lead to a satisfying lifestyle harmonious with members of the community. Be tolerant and accept the freedom of others to be different from Hirnella. Recognize the family as the basic unit of society and begin to understand the relationships and responsibilities in it. Understand the need and the techniques to continue developing his identity, personality, and emotional well-being. Are developing interests that will lead to a wise and satisfying use of leisure time. And learning how to establish and develop mature relationships. The socio-emotional development has to do with attitudes and feelings with children. Problems in the emotional and social development cause disturbances in the total development. Performing well in a class or group has to be learnt, and each teacher will have to promote this by taking care of a good pedagogical climate and class management. The educational concept of each school will have to be directed towards that goal. Each teacher need to have an idea of the final objectives of socio-emotional development and make herself familiar with various methodologies to achieve these final objectives with the pupils in her class, group. 1.9 Summary. This unit was an attempt to acquaint you with the concepts of growth and development, their interrelationships, and also to understand the differences between them. You also have read and must have understood well the principles of development. These principles are very essential for a teacher to know because their knowledge and understanding will facilitate your interaction with the children in your classrooms. The various stages of development and the types of development will also help in planning your instruction and other school activities accordingly. Thank you. We will see you with the next chapter.